afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. So let me say, and I love you back. And I love you back. So let me say, my heart is full today. My heart is full today, full of gratitude for the trust you have placed in me, full of love for our country, and full of resolve. The outcome of this election is not what we wanted.
You can say that again. Let's get into this. So Kamala Harris is giving her amazing concession speech here, and I want to give it a listen to. I'm going to speed it up, though, because she does speak pretty slowly. And this is something that I wanted to talk about coming into this election. It's something that I have been saying to people. Making Kamala Harris lose the election is not a personal punishment to her. She comes out, what is the first thing she says in her concession speech? My heart is full. I am extremely, I have a ton of gratitude for everyone that voted for me, supported for me, gave me their time. Kamala Harris losing the election is not a punishment to her. It's a punishment for everyone that now has to deal with Donald Trump, and specifically people that aren't Trump's millionaire cronies. Kamala Harris is a millionaire. She is going to be fine during the next 4 years.
For, not what we voted for, but hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright. As long as we never give up, and as long as we keep fighting.
One thing that she should give up is the idea that she's just going to defend the status quo, just defend the liberalism that is a hallmark of Joe Biden's presidency, of Hillary Clinton's campaign, of Obama. That has been rejected resoundingly in both the 2016 election and even more so in this 2024 election, where you pretty much did have a referendum on liberalism versus revolutionary stuff, which is what Trump's talking about.
To my beloved Doug and our family, I love you so very much. To President Biden and Dr. Biden, thank you for your faith and support. To Governor Walz and the Walz family, I know your service to our nation will continue. And to my extraordinary team, to the volunteers who gave so much of themselves, to the poll workers and the local election officials, I thank you all. Look, I am so proud of the race we ran and the way we ran it. Over the 107 days of this campaign, we have been intentional about building community and building coalitions, bringing people together from every walk of life and background, united by love of country with enthusiasm and joy in our fight for America's future. And we did it with the knowledge that we all have.
Oh my God. The coalition that she built, literally Republicans have gotten more ethnic diversity in this election than they ever have before. What is the coalition that she's building? A coalition with Republicans, specifically Liz Cheney, who's so beloved by Republicans that they primaried her out of her Senate race? You're going with the most hated Republicans possible because those are the only ones that are going to work for you. The only Republicans that have any sway with actual Republican voters are the ones that are completely sycophantic to Donald Trump. And of course, they're not going to build any kind of coalition with Democrats. And we know that the same amount of Republicans that voted for Trump in 2020 voted for him in 2024, percentage-wise. 95% in 2020, 95% in 2024. This whole Republican middle-of-the-road voters that the Harris campaign was desperately trying to get completely failed. So when she talks about coalition building, just know that that is a failed and dead strategy. Provably false, provably a dumb strategy that we see over and over, and the Democrats just refuse to identify that that's a bad strategy to do.
So much more in common than what separates us. Now, I know folks are feeling and experiencing a range of emotions right now. I get it. But we must accept the results of this election. Earlier today, I spoke with President-elect Trump and congratulated him on his victory. I also told him that we will help him and his team with their transition, and that we will engage in a peaceful transfer of power.
Wow, congratulations, Kamala Harris. You're not doing a January 6th. One thing that you actually could have done to get maybe some Trump voters on your side. Let's just take a look at this. So this Harriet Hagman defeated Liz Cheney in 2022 in the Republican primary with a landslide 66.3% of the vote. And do you know why Liz Cheney got completely destroyed? Because she stood in the way of Donald Trump. This is the kind of person that the Republican, or that the Harris-style Democrats, these libbed up Democrats, are looking towards to help them campaign. Man, you can't make this stuff up. It's harder to come up with a dumber strategy if you tried to.
A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results.
Keep taking the high ground.
As much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny. And anyone who seeks the public trust must honor it. At the same time, in our nation, we owe loyalty not to a president or a party, but to the Constitution of the United States. And loyalty to our conscience and to our God. My allegiance to all three is why I am here to say, while I concede this election, I do not concede the fight that fueled this campaign.
If Democrats are pushing their election strategy as being faithful and loyal to the Constitution, then that's explicitly why they're losing. Democrats ran a campaign of, we are going to uphold this liberal bureaucracy that America has been existing under for this entire century so far. You had Obama, you had then Trump, and even though Trump was a little bit unhinged, he was still safeguarded by these conservative liberals that were in his administration. They were literally taking forms off of Donald Trump's desk to change his policies and change what he would do. That's how dumb Donald Trump was, and how safeguarded all of the actions that he was doing was by this corporate bureaucratic state that's been built up over the years that pretty much exists to maintain the status quo. It's a system that exists to perpetuate itself, and that's the type of liberals that you get. Kamala Harris ran on, Trump is going to disband this system. Donald Trump is like, hell yeah, I am. I am going to disband it. It's not working for you. You're not able to afford food. You're not able to afford rent. Obviously, this system isn't working for you. Kamala Harris was campaigning for Donald Trump with this election. She was painting him as the change candidate in an election where 66% of the country said we were on the wrong track. She tied herself to Joe Biden in her campaign. Again, you cannot make up how bad the decisions were by Kamala Harris's election team. I think I've heard enough of this. I think it's going to be more of the same bullshit of when they go low, we go high. We're going to put we're going to put democracy and the Constitution above partisan politics. Again, that's not what people are really looking for. I want to watch which video? I want to watch this. I think this is interesting.
It's time for change. Donald Trump is our future. Donald Trump is the person who's going to take us up, back up to where we used to be. When we have money, when we had everything. And he's going to shut down the borders, which we need it really bad. The economy is going to get back up. And here we are supporting him forever. Donald J. Trump, the best!
Okay, so I wanted to play this clip because I think it is very indicative of the way that people are feeling about this election. So what does he have? He says that Donald Trump's going to give us money. Donald Trump's going to shut down the borders. He's going to make us safe. All of these things are policies that Joe Biden and the Democrats had. The Democrats went very right on the border, saying that we're going to shut them down, saying that they're a big issue. Joe Biden deported more people than Donald Trump did, both as a raw number and a percentage. Shout out Kyle Kalinske, Secular Talk. Joe Biden passed the CHIPS Act. He passed the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, which both of those really invested in infrastructure and created a lot of jobs. And they did serve to reduce inflation. We can talk more about how Joe Biden actually did attack the drug trade, and we saw his policies lead to a dramatic decrease in the amount of fentanyl deaths that we're experiencing in America. Not by shutting down the border, but by actually targeting the source of fentanyl. And now we're seeing just drug dealers not having enough fentanyl. Their source is completely drying up. So this voter has issues that he claims are important to him that the Democrats are addressing. So what is the disconnect here? Well, we can see that when we look at Kamala Harris and the way that she talks about her issues, that is the biggest disconnect. Democrats are horrible at messaging, specifically relating these very specific and kind of in-depth and detailed policies that they have, like the IRA, like talking about immigration, like explaining that fentanyl's actually decreased because Joe Biden's targeted the source halfway around the world. That message isn't translating. And when you get a guy like Donald Trump saying, I'm going to kick out everyone, I'm going to close the borders. What does close the borders mean? I've never understood what that meant. It's not like there's a gate that's open and people come in and then you just close the gate. What does close down the border mean? I don't know. I don't know what Trump means when he's like, I'm going to bring back your jobs and we're going to reduce. Are we going to have deflation now where the price of groceries is going to go down? I just straight up don't understand what Trump is talking about when he says these things, but it doesn't matter. It's the general vibe of what Trump is saying, and that's what's resonating with these voters. Let's take a look at Kamala Harris's website. This is kamalaharris.com. Let me zoom in on this so that you can read it a little bit. So, a new way forward. Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are fighting for a new way forward that protects our fundamental freedoms, strengthens our democracy, and ensures every person has the opportunity to not just get by, but to get ahead. As a prosecutor, then we have a history of this. She promises to be a president for all Americans, a president who unites us around our highest aspirations, and a president who always fights for the American people. From the courthouse to the White House, that has been her life's work. So just one comment on this. Obviously, these are vague, but vague in a sense that doesn't really relate to people. People don't look at these fundamental freedoms and understand what that means. What is a fundamental freedom? People think of freedom as driving a truck. People think of freedom as playing music really loud or being able to go out and shoot a gun in your backyard. People do not think of fundamental freedoms as like a right to health care. Strengthen our democracy. What does this mean? People don't give a fuck about how strong our democracy is. They just want to see the person they vote for do well, and they want to be able to relate to this person. They want the person they vote for to essentially be a reality TV figure. And then also, to pick apart this last sentence, and a president, who unites us around our aspirations. She wants to be a president for all Americans. Americans do not want a president for all Americans. They want Donald Trump to own the libs. They want Kamala Harris to say, "Oh, go fuck yourself. You're a Trump supporter at my rally. I think you're at the smaller rally down the street." They're over this fucking unity bullshit. Let's continue. This is her key policy. Build an opportunity economy and lower costs for families. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me with this? What the fuck is an opportunity economy? The average voter doesn't know what that is. They just know, is the economy good or bad? Is my price at the gas station cheap? Or is it over $3.50? Is my price of eggs when I'm in the grocery store increased? Is the amount of milk increased? What is this opportunity economy bullshit? This election has shown me that when you are trying to get across your message to voters, you need to simplify everything down to basically a 3-word phrase. You can have multiple policies, but they need to be very simple. Close the border. End war. I'm going to deport immigrants. That's simple stuff. You need to treat your voters like they are parrots. And I think that even though you can say that progressives are more educated than conservatives are, and maybe they can get their head around this, it still doesn't matter. I was asking my parents today, can you talk about what Kamala Harris's policies are? And it's like, okay, well, she's going to bring back child tax credit, make it easier to start businesses. These aren't strong policies in the sense that they give people a vision and you can rally behind them. Sure, child tax credits is great. At the end of every year, you'll get $3,000 back, $2,000 back, depending on your tax bracket and the number of children you have. That's not something that's going to motivate people to vote. Okay, let's read a little bit more of this. So Vice President Harris grew up, so we've seen this. Vice President Kamala Harris has made clear that building up the middle class will be a defining goal of her presidency. That's why she will make it a top priority to bring down costs and increase economic security for all Americans. As president, she will fight to cut taxes for more than 100 million working and middle class Americans while lowering the cost of everyday needs like healthcare, housing, and groceries. She will bring together organized labor and workers, small business owners, entrepreneurs, and American companies to create good-paying jobs, grow the economy, and ensure that America continues to lead the world. So this is pretty good, but still, let's have a bit more broad rhetoric than we're going to build up the middle class, and that's going to be a defining goal of my presidency. I really think you just need to simplify it even more than this, and this is already pretty simple. Let's watch a little bit more of these Trump supporters.
I'm gonna go home frustrated and a little still confused because I feel like I saw Kamala Harris come into our town and cause traffic jams every single week. Pittsburgh was the main place. They were 5 minutes from my house, and it's yeah, you got that area blue.
I did not expect it at all, and to be honest, going into the election and this whole election cycle, I wasn't sure I was wanting to vote for President Trump. It was a very tumultuous process, but seeing the campaigning and seeing how Harris's policies ended up throughout the summer, and seeing Biden drop and seeing that,
bro, what policies? This guy
really
doesn't know
unsteady
anything.
Process, I realized that this was probably the best choice. I didn't think this would be the result, but I'm happy it was, and I'm happy we got.
Hold on. I gotta break this down. What the fuck is this guy talking about?
Summer and seeing Biden drop and seeing that, really unsteady process, I realized that this was probably the best choice. I didn't think this would be the result, but I'm happy it was, and I'm happy we got to it quickly.
So I do not believe.
Holy shit. So this guy's reason of voting for Trump is that Harris didn't have a primary, that Biden dropped out. That's crazy, dude. The Democrats fucked us so hard, man. They forced Joe Biden through the primary. Then they discovered his brain didn't work anymore and he was just falling apart at the seams. And they're like, oh, well, we definitely got to get someone else. And then they just chose Harris. They didn't even have like a fake primary. Just do a fake primary. People aren't going to care. Oh my God. But also just have a real primary. Why wouldn't you do that? Jesus fucking Christ. Even if you're confident that Joe Biden's going to win, have a real primary to actually test your candidate. Man. And Democrats want to be like Trump, man. Democrats really want to be like Trump. They want to have everyone fall in line, but the Democratic Party is just too broad a coalition, and we just don't really have that cult of personality like Trump does. We don't have that strong base, and we kind of saw that here. We saw the Democrat, what they assumed to be their base, kind of fall apart, and I'll have more on that later, but the Democrats cannot assume that their base is going to support them. And we see Trump time and time again go to his base, consolidate his base, and that pays off for him.
The Democratic Party in its current form is capable of leading the United States into a major conflict, and I believe that's what we're headed to because of this administration in large part. So if given the choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, who's going to lead the military in what could be World War III, I have to tip my hat to Donald Trump in that regard. The other one would be immigration. I'm married to an immigrant. We went through the legal process, cost us thousands of dollars, and took many years to do. I don't think it's fair.
Bro, I love the people that are like, there's so many illegal immigrants happening. I'm the son of an immigrant. My parents immigrated here illegally, but I'm against them. This guy's like, I'm married to an immigrant, but these immigrants are just wild, man. So it's so funny, like every time.
For anyone to cross the southern border and get some path to citizenship, and it's not a race thing, because I don't care if you're coming from China, Ukraine, what you look like. I don't care. You're more than welcome to come here, but you have to do it the right way.
I've been watching this for
Also, that's just like the exact same argument against forgiving student loans. Oh, well, I paid off my student loans. Why do these people get their student loans forgiven? This guy's like, my wife had to go through the legal process. Why can other people that came here illegally also go through a legal process? It's like, dude, just like have some empathy for people. Life isn't always fair. You're admitting the system is really fucked up, and you're advocating for that system to get even worse.
3.5 years, everything that this man's went through, what his family
How's he
went
not?
through, and just to wake up today.
Okay, I was going to say, how is he not an RFK supporter? But I guess I said it anyway.
I found such peace. I had to be here. I didn't sleep at all last night, one wink. I watched it all on TV, and then I came
This
here.
guy's a
to watch the sun
UFC
come
fan.
up.
Good things are coming. Good things are coming. Whether you voted for him or not, you'll see a change in this country.
Bro, she can't even say a single fucking change. And I'm sorry, like, none of Trump's policies or grievances have any bearing on reality at all. The border, that's hilarious. Him saying that he's going to end the wars. Like, he's completely living in this delusional land. Or, like, that's assuming he believes everything he says. I think the more likely reality is that he's just lying to his supporters, and they're completely believing it.
And hopefully the world. I just don't want all this war stuff and all this back and forth. I don't want all of it. I want
Oh my God.
just peace, day in.
And this is something that I've been thinking of too. How Kamala Harris's policies on, let's single out Israel and Gaza, where she tries to both sides this, and she'll say that we need to do a ceasefire and bring the hostages home. And in a lot of people's minds, what they hear is that ceasefire, you're stopping the fighting, but it means that this fighting is going to continue. Donald Trump gets in there and he just says, I'm going to end the wars. And guess what? People that, even if the genocide is their first issue, the genocide in Gaza is their first issue, they might hear Donald Trump say, I'm going to end the wars, and they might vote for him. Conservatives that could care less about the genocide, that might be thinking about voting for Kamala Harris, will hear her say, we need a ceasefire. And they're still going to think Donald Trump is the less pro-war candidate. He's going to end the conflicts in their minds. So in their minds, they're voting for the person that is going to end war. And I'm sorry to people, but in terms of both Israel and their genocide in Gaza and their invasion of Lebanon and and Ukraine's defensive war against Russia. Trump does have the power to end both of those wars. Gaza is just not going to exist. Man, Gaza's not going to exist. I don't think Palestine's going to exist in like the next 2 years. I think just Israel's going to kick everyone out there and colonize it. Ukraine is going to cede a ton of territory to Russia and might even be like a vassal state, like a controlled territory by Russia when Trump pulls out of NATO, or at least stops defending Ukraine with American military. So people will hear Trump say, I'm going to end these wars. And even if you're anti-war, you're still going to vote for him. Or it will at least give you the excuse that, oh, well, Trump's anti-war, that's why I voted for him. When in reality, you voted for him because he's doing like, just rhetoric that you like. He's owning the libs, right? And then that's one other thing that I kind of didn't talk about Kamala Harris, but when she says that we're going to unite everyone, like we just voted in someone that literally said, I'm going to use the military to go after the enemy within the country. So yeah, this unity rhetoric from Democrats, it honestly has to end. At this point, I think leftists and even liberals are really going to want to see some repercussions for Democrats, or for Republicans, Democrats too, of course. But I think liberals and leftists are going to be really fucking sick of Republicans by the time that the 2028 election rolls around. They're not going to want unity either.
Day out.
You know, we took a country back and we're going to return it back to be great again. Yeah, so it's the victory not only for us.
Just want to read her pin. So she has the Trump fight, Globe 3KR, the Israel flag, American flag. What is this?
Americans, but
Trump was right. Thin blue line, breast cancer awareness. Shit, I should know what flag this is. Ecuador, I think.
So for peace to other countries, especially Israel.
Oh, January 6th thing.
You know what the biggest loss was above all is that we still did not even reach 50% voter turnout. And so even though I have a lot of feelings as a woman and a lot of questions about the future, you know, we all have a part to play. This election was lost months ago when people didn't register or didn't have the information or have access to good information. So, you know, it's all of us. It's not just Trump, it's everyone.
Sometimes it doesn't feel good, right? But I'm a black African American woman in the United States of America. The struggle is always here, and the struggle is not going anywhere. You know what I mean? So I got to continue to wake up every day and push.
There's nothing I can do if he lost or won, so I'm just going to go to work next day. It's all the same to me. Things might change, but things might not change. Who knows?
And I was
Yeah, that guy is the most realistic understanding of what's going to happen. And what that person's talking about is true. Like, the voter turnout for the Democrats was just low, and you have to look to the campaign and what they were doing because of that. So I think that's interesting.
believed. It's what I wanted. It was, yeah, I voted for Trump, so I'm happy with the results, and I just want it back to what it happened 4 years ago with him, and I just think it's just going to be better. I mean, even the Dow is showing that it's, you know, increased and stuff, so we're doing well with the Dow.
Yeah, because the Dow has a direct relation to how much money you have to spend on things. So fucking dumb, man. Oh my God. These people can't name like a single thing that will materially change, or I guess if they do name some things like immigration, I mean, how is your life affected by immigration? That's what I want to know. And really, like, every time we hear horror stories of immigration, it's complete nonsense. Like, I'm listening to Republican governors or Republican mayors in towns on the border complaining to NPR, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well we have so many illegal immigrants that are just coming right now, and there's such a crisis happening on the border." And then the NPR reporter will be like, "Oh, okay, so like what's happening?" He's like, "We have extra trash. There's so much extra trash. So take some of the illegal immigrants that you have, give them fucking high-vis vests, and then drive them around in a garbage truck. Problem solved. It's so dumb, man. It's really stupid. And if you would ever ask someone that's complaining about immigration, oh, well, how's it personally affecting you? They have nothing. They're like, well, I've heard stories of someone getting killed by an illegal immigrant. It's ridiculous.
This morning with the results, so I think it's great.
It's not safe for us right now, especially in Arizona. We're on the border.
Of course, the coffee shop employee is a Harris supporter.
We've always had like discrimination, people just thinking that that they're protected in like ways they can discriminate against the Hispanic community, and this is from like legal standing Hispanics. Like, oh, if the immigrants are getting all these things, if we get rid of them, they'll give them to us, and then it's on me and like my friends, other Latinos, to tell them, no, they're gonna take their stuff away and take our stuff away.
I was excited for the news. I'm the type, I'm not, I'll say overly invested in which candidate wins or loses.
This guy's a creepy looking motherfucker.
My authority is way above either candidate. But no, I was happy. I think that it's ultimately good for our country.
Holy shit. Okay, so I think that's going to bring me into this next segment. So this next segment is going to be a little bit of media analysis. And okay, well, we'll end this part. And I want to talk about this because I think that like going over these uninformed voters is kind of relevant to this next part that I want to talk about.
Those numbers are bunk, just so you understand. But look at this dynamic. So those guys are on Rumble, so those numbers are not real anyway. But even if those numbers are diminished, right? Even if they're not super botted, look at the space. Dan Bongino, Steven Crowder, me, Patrick Bet-David, Charlie Kirk, Benny Johnson, Asmongold, Charlie Kirk, hashtag Tucker Carlson, Timcast. I wonder if there's one guy that's different than everybody else on this list. Will the Democrats notice? Will the Democratic Party notice? That's the issue. No shot Crowder had more views than me. I literally haven't heard his name said in months. Yeah, no. Is it logical for you to make a second podcast solo and get bigger and bigger guests and sprinkle in some left-wing ideas into the convos like an anti-Joe Rogan podcast? No, I do that already in here. The issue is the party does not want to even acknowledge the base. Okay, this makes E's dumbass argument that you get no pushback or opposing voices look incredibly foolish and myopically focused on Twitch. Yeah, it's not even myopically focused on Twitch. It's myopically focused on just me, which is kind of...
Okay, so essentially what I thought was interesting on this is indicative of the new type of media that really played an important role in this election. And yesterday I read a Reuters article that was going over the fact that Donald Trump got 45 million views on Joe Rogan's podcast. Kamala Harris, and then he got endorsed by Joe Rogan. Kamala Harris declined to go onto Joe Rogan's podcast. But then in the article, they're like, but Kamala Harris has much more famous endorsements than Joe Rogan, like Kobe Bryant. And what people like Reuters and the people in Kamala Harris's campaign that said we're too busy to get 45 million views, even if we cut that in half, 22.5 million views. They're too busy for that. They're too busy to go on to this. And the people like Reuters and the people that are running Democratic campaigns do not realize that we've entered a new media space. The media space where these kind of independent conservative voices, such as Dan Bongino, Steven Crowder, Patrick Bet-David, Joe Rogan, all of these guys who might even be not explicitly political, but they all definitely have a conservative tint to their content. They let their personal biases come out, but they do it in a way where it's not really in your face. So they kind of introduce these conservative views to their viewers naturally, and then their audience grows into that viewpoint. The Democrats do not recognize that this is a new paradigm that we're living in, where you do need to go on these alternative media platforms such as YouTube, Twitch, Kick, all of these things, and reach out to voters there. And I think this is a really big wake-up call, or at least I hope it is a wake-up call for the Democratic Party. That brings me to this. So the reason that I said that connected to the interviewing of the Trump supporters is because it really reminded me of this conversation with FaZe Banks. So this was with FaZe
got you
Banks
an
and
American
Hassan.
flag for your birthday. Don't know if you remember that Rick Owens flag.
I do remember. It used to be behind me, but we moved it away. But
thing to watch like the more like left leaning.
So it seems like neither of us were able to convince you.
I like dabble in like Charlie Kirk and stuff too, but again, preface like the fact that I think his views and like his take on like abortion and stuff like that are. And when it comes to like dabbling in coming to like my own conclusions and consuming like political content, it's typically via, and I know this is gonna kill you, but Destiny, yourself, typically like I find it more interesting to watch like the more like left leaning.
So it seems like neither of us were able to convince you.
I like dabble in like Charlie Kirk and stuff too, but again, preface like the fact that I think his views and like his take on like abortion and stuff like that are insane. I think he's like a little too like God Christianity heavy. That's just like my like, general like normie.
No wrong answers. No wrong answers in this situation.
Charlie Kirk, who literally says that we're fighting in wars against demons, is a little bit too God heavy. I'm going to listen to a bit more of this, but the reason that I'm playing it is because I do think that this guy, FaZe Banks, who seems pretty stupid, is a good depiction of the average voter, and especially young voters, where Democrats were expecting young voters to come out in droves to support them. And really, they did nothing to reach out to young voters. Sure, they had like content creators for Kamala on TikTok, but like those people do not have a significant fraction of the audience size compared to guys like Joe Rogan or Charlie Kirk or even Destiny. So I think this guy FaZe Banks is a perfect example of a voter that could have been reached if Kamala Harris did go on Joe Rogan, if the Democratic establishment did give guys like Hassan greater access. We saw Donald Trump just do the full gambit of podcasts: Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, the fucking Paul Brothers podcast, all of this shit. Lex Friedman, Patrick Bet-David, he did all of this shit. He was doing it to the point where it was normal. He was normalizing himself, even to leftists that were watching this. Oh, Trump's on another podcast. Well, I've seen him so many times before, it's probably not even worth covering. He's literally normalizing himself to these people. Can you imagine Obama talking to Hassan? Can you imagine Obama going on a Vosh stream? It's unimaginable. The Democratic establishment, the people that really other Democratic candidates and politicians look to for guidance, are just really out of touch right now.
My biggest thing for you and how I came to this conclusion is really this. It's like, again, like I said in the tweet, it's just there are some like glaring like hypocrisies on the left that I've noticed over I guess the biggest thing I would say, and like how I feel, is just duped and like tricked. Obviously the left played heavily into like identity politics and took a more like emotional like stance and angle, all things considered, I would say.
What do you mean by that?
You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah, all of this is directly from these right-wing conservative podcasts, because to be honest, who's playing identity politics more? The Democrats or the Republicans in this election cycle? And I would say, I wouldn't really say it was the Republicans who were playing more identity politics. I never heard Kamala Harris reference once the fact that she was a black woman, except if she was asked the question in relation to Donald Trump bringing it up and asking for her response to that. So again, but who complains about identity politics? Joe Rogan complains about it. Patrick Bet-David will complain about it. Guys like Charlie Kirk will complain about it. Ben Shapiro, all of these guys, and this guy gets the impression that the Democrats are all identity politics, and they're hypocritical on this. They say, vote for me just because I'm a woman. So, yeah. I just wanted to hear one part where he talks about
the narrative, like I said, the
watching
narrative of Trump being a racist,
Rogan.
because
you don't think Trump's a racist?
Before he was even elected, I don't think that Trump's a racist for the reasons that are typically like pushed via the left. No, I don't.
Like, what do you like? As in,
I don't think Trump's any more racist than Joe Biden is.
okay, I don't. Well, to be fair, I don't fully disagree with you. I think that Donald Trump is individually a racist and was just as racist at the time when Joe Biden was like writing racist legislation in the early 90s and the 80s. He took an ad calling for the execution of the Central Park Five in the New York Times. His real estate properties that him and his father owned have been routinely investigated by federal authorities like far before he ever became a television personality, even for like non-housing black people.
All these bullet points and specific examples you'd give me, there'd be always somebody on the right who would give me an equal number of bullet points and examples as to why Joe Biden's more of a racist.
No, I'm not telling you Joe Biden's not racist. I think.
Okay, so this is something that FaZe Bank said multiple times. Hassan will bring up facts, kind of making the case against Trump or for Harris, and then this guy will be like, okay, well, you're telling me facts, but if I talk to a conservative, they would tell me just as many facts. Which is pretty hilarious.
Joe Biden.
Let's get into some conservative reactions. So that was the conservative voter. What do I got here? So just more about this right-wing media apparatus that the Democrats really have no understanding of at all. Charlie Kirk, our Prove Me Wrong campus debate clips were seen 2.1 billion times this semester on TikTok, Instagram, X, and YouTube. The vast majority of those were viewed by 18 to 29-year-olds, and the Kamala campaign never knew how to counter. Young people showed up for Trump. And unfortunately, he is just correct here. I don't know specifically what these are, but I saw Charlie Kirk doing some debates. And it does look like, Kamala Harris had nothing. Let's listen to this. So this says, in Wisconsin and Arizona, you are seeing a huge targeted turnout of low propensity voters for Trump. And who's doing that? Well, that's Turning Point Action.
Time,
Jack, are you there?
Well, Michigan, Wisconsin, I mean, those races are so close. Those races are just so close, and it stinks. Like, it really stinks because you look at those. And at the same time, when you look at who did actually win out the races in Michigan, Wisconsin, I think the story is already starting to come out. If you look at the numbers, it was those low prop voters. It was low prop voters coming out in Michigan and specifically Wisconsin and Arizona. You are seeing a huge targeted turnout of low prop voters for Trump. And who was doing that? Well, that's Turning Point Action. That was the Turning Point Action model. And you're starting to now see this in the data that it was those guys that actually made the difference, guys and girls, but actually made the difference in the data for.
Yeah, I mean, mostly guys, let's be honest. But he's right here. It's just, okay, oh my God, I hate Matt Walsh, but I do kind of want to listen to this.
We've had our fun with these videos. We've sipped from the chalice of leftist suffering. We've satiated our thirst with the sweet nectar of liberal tears. But
oh God, he's so cringy. Why can't he just be normal? Why can't Matt Walsh just be talk normal? He has to talk in this like neo-religious speak where they have to make everything sound so profound and educated. This is the exact kind of person who wishes he was a professor, right? So it's embarrassing.
I do want to get serious for just one moment and offer a word of encouragement to these people. It may seem funny to us, but they are truly worried that Donald Trump will be an evil dictator.
Bro, he literally said he would.
Irresponsible and frankly pretty cruel of me if I didn't take a second.
He's going to say he is,
on
right?
that point.
That he is going to be a dictator.
So, in all seriousness, all jokes aside, no, Donald Trump is not going to be an evil dictator.
Oh, is he going to say he's going to be a benevolent dictator?
He's going to be a good dictator.
Yep, exactly.
So don't worry.
Matt Walsh thinks he's so clever, man. God, I fucking hate this little prick. Let's see what Barack Obama had to say. Here's her statement on the results of the 2024 presidential election. Who is who is R in this? Let's check it out. Over the last few weeks and through Election Day, millions of Americans cast their votes not just for president, but for leaders at every level. Now the results are in, and we want to congratulate President Trump and Senator Vance on the victory. Why? This is obviously not the outcome we had hoped for, given our profound disagreements with the Republican ticket on a whole host of issues, but we live in a democracy. But living in a democracy is about recognizing that our point of view won't always win out and being willing to accept the peaceful transfer of power. Michelle and I could not be prouder of Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. Is he going to say anything interesting? As I said on the campaign trail, America has been through a lot over the last few years, from a historic pandemic and price hikes resulting from the pandemic to rapid change, and the feeling a lot of folks have that no matter how hard they work, treading water is the best they can do. These conditions have created headwinds for Democratic incumbents around the world, and last night showed that America is not immune. The good news is that these problems are solvable, but only if we listen to each other and only if we abide by the core constitutional principles and democratic norms that made this country great. In a country as big and diverse as ours, we won't always see eye to eye on everything, but progress requires us to extend good faith and grace even to people with whom we deeply disagree. That's how far we've come. Okay, so who gives a fuck? Just talking more shit about, like, we need to respect the Constitution and shit's hard, but, you know, you should have voted for us. Okay, so this is Alex Jones. We covered this, we covered this, we covered this. What else do we have? Matt Walsh. Okay, so Matt Walsh also said, like, yeah, it's true. We are doing Project 2025, which is something that you know, is important to talk about. Obviously, they're doing Project 2025. So, I mean, one reason that is actually something why you should be looking at conservatives is, let's just be honest, they outplayed the Democrats. The Democrats went with the same old tired playbook, and the conservatives have adapted to that playbook and figured out how to beat them. Democrats are going to have to really change in order to win more races in the future. So let's just read some more Matt Walsh stuff. One of the takeaways from tonight's results: the trans movement is dead. Trump campaigned heavily against it and won in a landslide. Americans have finally rejected trans insanity. That's just not true. Trans people were not even on any of the lists of the most important issues. But yeah, keep campaigning against trans. That's like the worst issue for Republicans. We had the trans activists on the ropes for a while. This was the knockout blow. Good riddance. Kamala ran entirely on her love of abortion and her hatred of men. Don't know where he's coming up with that. She wagered that enough Americans share those sentiments to push her to victory. Thank God she was wrong. So that's interesting. We'll come back to this later. Okay, let's listen to a bit of Kyle talking about this.
Shapiro to be the pick. So now in retrospect, she's saying, oh, if it was Josh Shapiro, we would have won. Guys, Trump has over 300 electoral college votes. He may end up winning the popular vote, right? So this was not like, hey, with this one little tweak, this one weird trick, oh, it all could have been different. No. They say Harris's positions were not clearly staked out. She knows it was a mistake to say on The View that she couldn't think of a single thing that she would do differently from the Biden administration. That was opener for her to show Americans that she's going to get tough on the border, that she's going to take drastic measures to bring down inflation. That was her chance. And she knew that she maybe should have were two things differently when in the next 40 minutes. What does that mean? And she said, I would appoint a Republican to the cabinet. So she walked that back a little bit. Okay. On the point that that was her worst moment, I agree. The idea that you couldn't separate yourself from Biden, and ultimately that's what this election was about. It was an anti-incumbency vote, and by you not separating yourself from Biden, you are effectively saying I am a continuation of Biden, and people did not want that. I agree that that was probably her worst moment. But again, I want to be clear, even if she didn't do that, would she have won? These are not small margins that we're talking about here, right? The focus...
Right. It's not just one thing that she can change. There were a lot of just deep structural problems to her campaign, and it all kind of came crashing down. Let's take a look at this.
How did we get here?
Hosted by Alex Jones.
What in the Alice in Wonderland nightmares is going on right now? All I can say is how fucking dare you?
If you voted for that man, if you voted for anybody other than Kamala, and you live in one of the states that it was, close, or if you didn't vote, fuck you.
Senate race. It's not going to happen. Go, Kamala.
I chose family. I chose women. I chose America. I love you.
How the fuck is this still happening? All I've ever known politically is hatred.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm done with you and your mother and your sister. I'm just done with all of this.
I'm sorry to all my friends who are Trump supporters. But y'all don't understand how scared of this man I am. If this guy...
Okay, so listen, these reactions aren't completely misplaced because Trump is going to fuck this country up. But I just want to say that, first of all, people blaming people that didn't vote, come now. The Democrats just did so many bad things that we've been talking about, so many mistakes, from courting Republicans to not actually targeting Republicans, not actually targeting people that are important demographics, such as the Joe Rogan universe type of stuff, to running as the status as normal candidate when 2/3 of the country wanted change in the country. So please do not blame people that didn't vote. Do not blame progressives. Do not blame people that said they were abstaining from voting because of genocide. That wouldn't have changed anything. Secondly, I just want to give a bit of Hope-ium. And I think that's going to bring me into this final point. This is going to connect me to my final point. But this is a time where you can get really involved especially in politics, especially on the local level. Reach out to your local party, your local Democratic Party. Ask if you can get involved. Ask if you can volunteer, and try to start networking with people. Build up friends, people you can rely upon, especially if you're in a conservative state. And not only can you make a real difference, but you're also going to feel a lot better when you're not just going to be crying into your phone. And this brings me into the final point that I'm going to be making, which is referendums. And I think, this is my theory, and I heard some analysts talking about it on NPR, but I think that referendums is a big tool that Democrats and Republicans, to an extent, have been overlooking. Not only can referendums get real policy changes done in the state, but I think that this election has shown me that they can be a very powerful tool by getting certain candidates elected or unelected. And I think that the evidence of this is that there were referendums in 10 different states. And I'm just going to say, if these referendums didn't exist, there's a very big chance that Kamala Harris would have won the presidency. So why do I say this? Well, let's read what the writer says. So, abortion rights were on the ballot in 10 U.S. states in Tuesday's election, including battleground states that play critical roles in the presidential race and the fight for control of Congress. The Democratic Party's presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, had sought to build support for the ballot measures, which each propose amending the state's constitution to enshrine a right to abortion. The Republican Party, led by former President Donald Trump, has opposed the measures, which follow the U.S. Supreme Court's 2022 ruling that abortion access was not a constitutional right. And you can find the results for these referendums on Ballotpedia. That's what I used. But let's take a look at this. So Florida failed. So the referendum in Florida got 57% support, but it still ended up failing because in Florida you need 60% support to pass constitution-changing referendums. Kamala Harris, let's take a look at this. So in Florida, Kamala Harris got 4.6 6.7 million votes. Donald Trump got 6.1 million votes. So we could round this up to 4.7 million to 6.1. If we take a look at the referendum in Florida, let's see if this has the stats. Okay, so Florida, that just has the percentages. It doesn't have the actual race. Oh my God, why am I not finding this? All right, let's go to Ballotpedia. Florida. Let's just look up Florida abortion. Oh no, okay. Okay, so NBC News should have it. All right, so this had 4.5 million votes in favor of banning the abortion, 6.06 million votes in favor of the amendment. So 6.06 people voted in favor of the amendment. And we can compare that to the Florida election, where you had almost 6.06 people voting for Donald Trump got 6.1 million votes, and 6.0 million people voted for the abortion amendment. So obviously people are voting both for abortion and for Donald Trump. That's not something people can do if there isn't a referendum on the ballot. So let's take another look at the referendum. There was about 1.5 million less votes. So the referendum got 1.5 million more votes than the referendum passed with 1.5 million more votes. That means 1.5 million more people voted for the referendum than against the referendum. Donald Trump got about 1.5 million more votes than Kamala Harris did. He got about 1.4. If we say that everyone that voted for the referendum would also vote for Kamala Harris, Harris would have won Florida. If we said even half the people that voted for the referendum voted for Kamala Harris still could have won Florida. The potential is there. And the reason I'm explaining this is because I think that referendums was essentially a vote splitter. It essentially allowed people to enshrine the right to abortion in the Constitution. And unfortunately for Florida, they have a stupid rule that you need 60%. They got pretty damn close. But it allows people the option to both enshrine these personal rights that are very important to them and vote for the candidate that they just have a better feeling about, which is Donald Trump. This was a huge blunder on the Democrat side, because we can take a look at some of these swing states. So there were referendums in 10 different states. In, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in 6 of the states they passed. 7 of the states passed. Florida didn't pass, unfortunately, but it did get 57%. And in the rest of the states, in the Democratic states, Harris won the Democratic states and the abortion measures passed. In 2 of the red states, in 2 of the red states that Harris lost, the abortion referendums failed, and so it wouldn't have mattered. And in the states and in the rest, in Arizona, Missouri, Nevada, Montana, and in Florida, the abortion referendums got more than 50% of the vote, and Kamala Harris got under 50% of the vote. So again, if we can take a look at the differences, Kamala Harris would have won the election if everyone that voted for the referendum also voted for Kamala Harris. And it's not a perfect one-to-one comparison where if you get rid of the referendum, all of those people would vote for Kamala Harris to protect their abortion rights. But I do think that a good amount of people that would, or that did vote for abortion rights, would have voted for Kamala Harris if that option wasn't there. And so what does that really mean? What is the relevancy of that? Well, the relevancy is that you should organize, and you should organize referendums and do stupid fucking referendums. If the Republican candidate is talking about how illegal immigrants are coming into the state of Nebraska and you're in Nebraska, say that we're going to do a referendum on illegal immigration. We're going to say that it's illegal for illegal immigrants to cross the border into Nebraska illegally. Just do stupid shit. The Republicans already do this all the time. They already pass ballot referendums that say it's illegal for illegal immigrants to vote. Say that that voter fraud is illegal. But the reason they do it is because they also want to strengthen laws and end up disenfranchising people. That's the reason they do it. Democrats can do this too. You can add referendums that would actually weaken laws, but it would still bring a focus on people and make them feel like they're voting for these specific things and kind of undercut the Republicans in what they're running on. And I know it's dumb, but I also just think that states should be doing more referendums. And so if you can get involved in your local politics and push for referendums to happen in your state, I think that that's a big step forward in a true representative democracy. And lastly, let's finish this off by reading Bernie Sanders' post about the election. He writes, "It should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find that the working class has abandoned them. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right." And that is perfectly said. Let's read his newsletter. Today, while the very rich are doing phenomenally well, 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and we have more income and wealth inequality than ever before. Unbelievably, real inflation accounted for weekly wages for the American worker are actually lower now than they were 50 years ago. Today, despite an explosion in technology and worker productivity, many young people will have a worse standard of living than their parents, and many of them worry that artificial intelligence and robotics will make a bad situation even worse. Today, despite spending far more per capita than any other countries, we remain the only wealthy nation not to guarantee health care to all as a human right, and we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. We alone, among major countries, cannot even guarantee paid family and medical leave. Today, despite strong opposition from a majority of Americans, we continue to spend billions funding the extremist Netanyahu government's all-out war against the Palestinian people, which has led to the horrific humanitarian disaster of mass malnutrition and the starvation of thousands of children. Will the big money interests and well-paid consultants who control the Democratic Party learn any real lessons from this disastrous campaign? Will they understand the pain and political alienation that tens of millions of Americans are experiencing? Do they have any ideas as to how we can take on the increasingly powerful oligarchy, which has so much economic and political power? Probably not. In the coming weeks and months, those of us concerned about the grassroots, democracy, and economic justice need to have some very serious political discussions. Stay tuned. And I think that's a perfect note to end the stream on. I don't want to be too doomer because I do think that this is a period for dramatic change within the Democratic Party. And if you were thinking about getting involved, networking with people, forming groups yourself, joining other groups, I really encourage you to do it. It's not the end of the world. We can get through this together. Thanks for watching, everyone.